于今天我们来参加我们的研讨会。那也同时提醒大家，记得关闭您的手机，或是将您的手机调整成静音的模式。接下来我们即将进行我们的开幕式。OK， 首先贵宾致辞的部分，非常欢迎大家来参与我们今天的研讨会勇渡红海圣母圣心会会主南怀义神父诞辰200周年纪念研讨会。今年是我们圣母圣心会会主南怀义神父200周年的诞辰纪念，主办单位鲁汶南怀仁基金会、辅仁大学天主教学术研究院、天主教圣母圣心会蒙华区区会。为了纪念这位比利时梅林总教区南怀义神父，我们今天在这边举办了国际学术会议。我们记得在160年前，我们南怀义神父创立了一个到中国传教的修会，而后大约有1000名神父以及修士受到他的启发，加入团体。那我们就在世界各地继续他的工作。今天我们也热忱的邀请您参观我们会场外的展览，从18幅各种新旧照片中，您可以了解圣母圣心会在华非常美丽以及相当戏剧化的发展过程。圣母圣心会是国际性的外方传教修会，会士们蒙召离开自己的家乡，前往被派遣的地方，向那些没有听过或尚未接受耶稣基督的人宣讲福音。首先，我们来邀请主办单位圣母圣心会华蒙区区会长麦冠达神父 Father Dominic Monkuda 为我们致开幕词。First of all, we would like to invite Father Dominic Monkuda, the supplier of the CICM Sino-Mongol district, the co-organizer of this seminar, to give us the opening address. Let's welcome Father.
Distinguished guests, dear moderator, my dear speakers, dear brothers and sisters, I may not be able to mention all of you by name, but be assured that your presence here is very much appreciated. These words are an expression of our profound gratitude to God and to all of you for making time to come and celebrate this event with us. So, on behalf of the Congregation of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Province of Asia, and our CICM Sino-Mongol district, I warmly welcome you to this symposium, Braving the Red Sea, in commemoration of our CICM founder, the Very Reverend Theophile Verbist. Celebrating his 200th birth anniversary this year is not just another date in history, but an opportunity to thank the Lord for the wonderful gift he gave to our world through the life and mission of our founder. Allow me to say that in Theophile Verbist, Belgium welcomed one of its greatest sons. The Church received a good and humble priest. Missionary life benefited from a great and adventurous mind, and through his work and the new developments through the ages, some parts of the world came to know an international CICM religious and missionary community that strives to bring the good news of salvation to the nations and journey together with the people in their God-given context. Speaking about our international character, our Confrère Joseph Das, commonly known in the Congo as Jos Das, a Belgian missionary, tried to imagine Theophile Verbist speaking to us CICM missionaries today. In his article entitled Letter from Father Theophile Verbist, published in the Chronica, the official newsletter of our congregation, Father Josdas says, "Yes, I repeat, I am amazed and at the same time delighted to see how this small plant in the beginning grew and became a big tree. The image has changed. The color has changed. My first companions were all Belgians and Dutch, and it was like that for many years. But our life, work, joy, and endurance inspired and attracted young people from the countries where we were at work. Today, the Scottish family, the CICM, counts among its members conference from Africa, Asia, the two Americas, and Europe. It has become like a vast field of flowers of different colors and beauties, a field much richer and less monotonous than when it was at the beginning. When I started this work, I could not imagine such a development, such growth. Let us thank God for His good." My dear participants, this international identity of CICM today is not a conglomeration of nationalities, but a message to the world that unity is possible where there is love and a sense of purpose. We have our founder, Theophile Verbist, to thank for this noble mission. In Theophile Verbist, we also learn to remain humble despite some great achievements. It is God's work, and let us always not forget to thank Him, for He made us instruments in His hands. I thank the organizers and the sponsors of this event for their creativity and the desire to keep the legacy of our founder alive. We may have a great founder in the person of Theophile Verbist, but if we do not avail ourselves to share about the elements of his life, we will surely deprive the world of something that might contribute to the building of a just and more beautiful world. Yes, the speakers are to be thanked as well for their availability, as well as for the research they made in order to unearth some of the aspects of the life of our founder and CICM. From Theophile Verbist's life and mission to the Risorgimento after his demise, a sharing on a missionary culture, to a look into the Beijing Verbist Academy, and a thought on a confrere considered to be the financial helmsman of the CICM in Taiwan, I am sure there is a lot to learn today. And how not to mention the contribution to sacred music of CICM missionaries in Taiwan. With this, Theophile Verbist can exalt and say once more, we have a good and beautiful mission. We are all gathered here in this beautiful venue, thanks to those who gave it to us. May the university be thanked for its unfailing support to science and culture. To all of you, I wish active participation. Commemorating the life of Theophile Verbist is not only remembering a man from the past, it is most importantly a learning moment that seeks to help all of us see how his life can motivate us today in our present and give or reload us with love, courage, and perseverance. During the solemn Eucharist celebrated for the bicentenary of our founder in Rome, and it was during the General Chapter, our General Superior said, "The best way to honor Theophile Verbist is to love God. Therefore, may the sharing on his life rekindle in us the love of God, and that in everything we do, people may come to believe that we are the witnesses to love in a changing world. Go, and God will go with you. I wish you all the best today, and may God bless you. Thank you very much.
谢谢 Father 的致辞。Thank you, Father Dominic Monkudat, for your message. Thank you. 辅仁大学学术研究院透过多元丰富的研究，以国际性的学术视野，成为华人世界天主教学术研究之重镇。接下来，我们邀请主办单位辅仁大学天主教学术研究院司马中院长为我们致开幕词，让我们欢迎司马中院长的致辞。
Dear Father Dominic and Dr. Hugo and our good friend Father Jerome Hendricks, and welcome to all the distinguished guests. Good morning, everyone. In the name of辅仁Catholic University, I extend my heartfelt wishes to the CICM fathers and friends of CICM on the occasion of the 200th birth anniversary of Father Theophile Verbist. Jen Academia Catholica is honored to host this conference. Academia Catholica and Verbiest Foundation Leuven have a long-standing history of collaboration through co-sponsoring conferences and academic exchanges. Those of us at辅仁have experienced the hospitality and generosity of Verbiest Foundation Leuven on many occasions. The history of every religious congregation and its founders epitomizes their faith, courage, and sacrifice in bringing the good news to the people. Father Verbist and CICM are no exception. Father Verbist, driven by zeal for the mission in China, founded CICM against all odds. Just like the biblical mustard seed, this small community has grown into a mighty tree, embodying the spirit and courage of Father Verbist for over 160 years. In today's conference, we will hear the historical accounts of Father Verbist and the CICM fathers, exploring their contributions to Chinese society. I am also delighted to acknowledge the contributions from辅仁Catholic University, presented by Bibiana Wong, alumna of辅仁, and a close associate of our Academia Catholica. And additionally, also, we are happy to the involvement of Professor Chen Fangzhong, the Dean of College of Liberal Arts, and Professor Hong Li-Xing, our research fellow and the director for Institute of Catholic History, in today's conversations. I'm confident that today's presentations and discussions will pay a fitting tribute to the faith and courage of Father Theophile Verbist, inspiring us to follow in his footsteps. I wish each of you an enriching gathering and a pleasant day at辅仁Catholic University. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for your presence. Thank you.
谢谢司马中院长的致辞。我们这次研讨会主办单位鲁汶南怀仁基金会多年来致力于提倡与中国对话，并积极与世界上所有的华人团体进行各项文化交流。接下来，让我们诚挚邀请这次特地远从比利时搭机来台参与我们研讨会鲁汶南怀仁基金会的秘书长Dr. Hugo Verbist 为我们致开幕词。We would like to invite Dr. Hugo Verbist, General Secretary of Ferdinand Verbiest Foundation, who just came from Belgium to attend this seminar, to give us an opening address. Let us welcome Dr. Hugo Verbist.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, you pronounce my name perfectly.
Thank you.
Distinguished guests, dear Father dear Professor Dean, dear guests, dear fathers and sisters. It is an honor and a pleasure for me as General Secretary of the Verbiest Foundation in Taipei and the Verbiest Foundation in Leuven to welcome you. And I do this in the name of Father Charles Fukuta, who is the General Superior of CICM Fathers, but also the Vice President, the Vice Chairman of our Verbiest Foundation. It's also in the name of our Chairman of the Verbiest Foundation, Cardinal de Kezel, the Cardinal of Belgium. I have to tell you that together with Father Jerome Hendricks and Miss Elisa Weng, Father Jerome Hendricks, who is the founder of the Verbiest Foundation, who is still board member, and our daily advisor, Miss Elisa Weng, who is also present. She is the General Supervisor of General Affairs of the Verbiest Foundation, both in Taipei and in Leuven. And the three of us are happy to be present here. We came in the beginning of the week to China and to Taiwan, and we are very happy that we can participate this morning and this afternoon during this symposium. And we are happy that we can meet old friends and make new friends in the academia, in CICM, with the CICM friends, with the Verbiest Association, and so on in the today and the coming following days. Later on today, I will give a little bit comment, not too much, about our renewed organization of Verbiest Foundation. Not a new one, but a renewed one. And now I'm going to wish you a very content-wise, qualitative symposium. I don't hesitate to say when I saw the names of the speakers that it will be qualitatively a very good symposium. And I thank you for your attention. I thank the organizers, the co-organizers, and the host of this conference, and we'll meet each other during the day. Thank you very much.
谢谢 Father 的谢谢 Doctor 的致辞 ，Thank you Dr. Hugo Beckesbeek。在这次的学术会议中，关于南怀义神父的生命故事。Thank you, Doctors and Fathers. 在这次学术会议中，关于我们南怀义神父的生命故事，他周世后首批会士们所承受的艰巨工作，以及会祖的灵修生活等，都在研讨会我们今天上午的时段里面会介绍并进行讨论。那第一阶段的专题演讲，我们非常荣幸邀请到圣母圣心会会士、罗马总会档案室主任安德迪布列克神父为我们主讲南怀义会祖的生平与传教愿景，并感谢圣母圣心爱慈会东亚会长，同时也担任中华南怀仁文化交流协会研究顾问与理事的范凯令神父担任我们的主持人。让我们欢迎 Father Bleeker and 范凯令神父。Let us welcome Let us welcome Father Andre de Bleeker and Father Francisco Carting.
Distinguished guests and dear brothers and sisters, because our guest doesn't speak Chinese, we will speak English in this first one. So I'm very glad and I'm very honored to be the moderator in this activity, and especially with Father Andre de Bleeker, because if you look at his job, education, experience, we see we're going to have a a person who is able to talk from both, we can say, the academia side, but also from the side of experience. He has a long history of mission and formation in the Philippines in an intercultural reality, and at the same time, he's now back in the Zonghui in their as general archivist of the CICM, and therefore, I guess that in his presentation we will be able to see the figure of Verbist, Theophile Verbist, from both sides, the mission side, but also from the charismatic and the research side. Thank you very much, Father Andre de Bleeker. Yes, let's show.
Dear friends, ni hao, good morning. Thank you for pronouncing my name also quite correctly. So dear friends, dear organizers, dear confreres, dear sisters, the topic of my conference is Theophile Verbist, founder of the CICM congregation, his life and missionary vision and spirituality. On the occasion of his death, Pope Pius IX said the following: "Man falls when his hour comes, but God will not let his work perish." And indeed, the work started by Theophile Verbist did not perish, but it flourished, and it is still flourishing. My conference will have 4 main points. First, the family background and priestly ministry of Theophile Verbist. It covers the years 1823 to 1860. In a second point, I will discuss the foundation of the CICM congregation. It took some years, about 5 years, before the congregation was founded. In a third point, I will briefly speak about the life of Verbist in China, covering the period December 1865 to February 1868, when he died in China. And I will conclude with a few words about his missionary spirituality and vision. So first, his family background and priestly ministry. Theophile Verbist was born in Antwerp, in Belgium. He was born in the house that you see on the screen. That is the house where our founder was born. The house still exists. Later it became a bar and restaurant, but for the moment, according to information, it became a normal house again. And on the facade of the house, there is a memorial plaque with a text in Dutch, and the English translation is the following: "This is the house where Father Theophile Verbist, founder of the missionary congregation of Scheut, was born." Father Verbist was born in a large family of 7 children. Guillaume was his father, and his father got first married to Catherine van Honsem. She too was from Antwerp. They had 1 child, namely Pierre, but a few years after the birth of the child, Catherine died. And then in 1819, Guillaume married another Catherine, Catherine Trog, and this time they had 7 children. So this is a picture of his mother. The first child was Guillaume, then follows Athanase. And then on June the 12th, 1823, so 200 years ago, twins were born, Theophile and his brother Edmond. So that is his brother Edmond when he was a lawyer. What is that? Yeah. Then follows René, and there was one daughter, namely Elizabeth. French was the mother tongue of the family, and the children also knew Dutch. The father was at first an office worker and later became a sales representative. And still later, he started his own business. In 1830, he became a banker, and the family was rather well off at that time. But some years later, when Theophile and the other children were still studying, the business of the father collapsed. When the twins, Theophile and Edmond, were 7 years old, they went to the Jesuit school in Antwerp for their elementary education. Later, they studied at the minor seminary of Mechelen in Belgium, which had a 6-year section for humanities and a 2-year section for philosophy. After finishing his 6 years humanities, Edmond started to study law, to be a lawyer, and Theophile wanted to become a priest. And after finishing 2 years of philosophy, he went to the major seminary of Mechelen to study theology for 3 years. After his study of theology, on September the 18th, 1847, he was ordained priest by Cardinal Engelbert Sterks. Meanwhile, his parents had left for London in 1842, but 3 years later they returned to Belgium. First, they stayed in Antwerp and moved then later to Brussels, maybe because Edmond, their son, had settled there as a young lawyer. So Verbiest was now ordained a priest, and he will start his priestly ministry in Belgium. A few weeks after his ordination, he was appointed supervisor at the minor seminary of Mechelen. The function of a supervisor in a secondary school called for a lot of patience, equanimity, and helpfulness. And according to the accounts of several former students, Theophile met these expectations, and they called him the good Mr. Verbiest. Alois van Zegveld was one of his colleagues, and later Alois van Zegveld will be among the first companions of Theophile Verbist. Then in August 1853, he was appointed chaplain at the military school in Brussels, and at the same time, director and confessor of a community of sisters, Les Sœurs de Notre-Dame de Namur. Now he had to move from Mechelen to Brussels and stayed in the house of his twin brother, Edmond. But when his twin brother got married, Theophile had to leave the house, and he went to a house provided by the sisters, Les Sœurs de Notre-Dame de Namur. Now the sisters watched their chaplain praying on his prayer bench. And according to them, he had a half an hour meditation before the Eucharistic celebration, and after the Mass, he had a prayer of thanksgiving lasting about 20 minutes. They believed that he was really a man of prayer. Then later in 1947, the sisters donated the prayer bench to the congregation, and it was placed in the chapel of the Superior General in Scheut. And according to the oral tradition of the sisters, it was on that prayer bench that our founder conceived the plan to found a missionary congregation. At present, this prayer bench can be seen in the crypt of Scheut in Brussels. It is placed just near the coffin containing the mortal remains of the founder. Theophile Verbist always encouraged the sisters to live in union with God. Now, Theophile Verbist enjoyed a certain prestige in military circles, most probably his physical appearance, because he was 1.87 meter tall, contributed to the increase of his prestige. He stayed about 10 years at the military school. It was especially his kindness that caught the attention. And now a few words about how his missionary vocation developed. One day, it was in the year 1859, he paid a visit to a sick student of the military school and so made contact with the student's family. They happened to talk about the Holy Childhood. Now, the Holy Childhood was an association that was founded by the Bishop of Nancy in France, Monsignor Charles Forbin Janson. And it was founded to assist missionaries in China who had written him for help. And so, during the conversation in the house of this student, they happened to talk about this Holy Childhood, for which his sisters, or the sisters of the sick student, were sympathizers. And later that year, Verbist joined the Holy Childhood and was registered as a member and sympathizer. His activities consisted in passing on a missionary spirit to the youth and also in collecting gifts for the Christian education of abandoned children. Then the following year, while remaining chaplain at the military school and director of the sisters, Verbist was appointed national director of the Holy Childhood in Belgium. Later, when referring to this period, he wrote that a concrete organization of the new congregation had been blessed by God, and that the realization of his missionary vocation owes its first inspiration to the Holy Childhood. As I mentioned already, it was according to the oral tradition of the sisters that their chaplain conceived his plan for a missionary foundation while praying before the Blessed Sacrament in their chapel. Then a political development of 1958 opened the doors for missionaries, opened the doors of China for missionaries. It is the infamous Treaty of Tianjin Treaty. And this news aroused great hopes among the missionaries in France and elsewhere. It also stimulated Verbist's missionary vocation. And he mentioned it to Alois van Zegveld, Frans Wrangs, and Remy Verlinde. These names will come back later. And together, they will now take up contact with the church authorities in Belgium and Rome. So that is the family background and the priestly ministry of Father Theophile Verbist. Now I go to the foundation of the CICM congregation, the period covering 1860 to 1865. Verbist's original idea was to form a religious congregation of Belgian priests who would be united by vows of stability, obedience, and poverty. It would be placed under the authority of a bishop in China in order to work under his jurisdiction for the salvation of souls. So this plan was submitted first to Cardinal Sterckx, the Archbishop of Mechelen. But the Cardinal declared that the implementation of the project was impossible, and that he was not to count on his assistance to try to put it into practice. Verbist returned twice to the Cardinal, but the Cardinal did not change his mind. Then they took up contact with the nuncio in Brussels with Monsignor Gonella. And Verbiest, together with Alois van Zegveld, addressed an official petition to Cardinal Alessandro Barnabo. He was the prefect of the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith. The nuncio sent a petition to the cardinal with a recommendation in Italian. And a little bit more than 2 weeks later, on August the 10th, Cardinal Barnabo answered the petition. He approved the aim of the project, but he also introduced some changes. Now, Verbiest and van Zegveld interpreted Barnabo's letter as an invitation to start a Belgian missionary congregation for the Far East. The news of the foundation in progress spread very fast. Several candidates, all of them assistant parish priests, came to see Verbiest. Now the first companions of Theophile Verbist, or those who were planning to join the congregation, they started writing the statutes. In February 1862, Verbiest met Cardinal Barnabo 4 times. And the result of these conversations was the following. First, placing a congregation under the authority of a bishop in China was not feasible. Second, the new Belgian mission should have its own complete organization in Belgium as well as in China. And it should have a territory in China with clearly stated borders to which a vicariate will be confided. And thirdly, a novitiate was to be started in Belgium in order to prepare the young priests who will go for missionary work in China. But at the same time, they should also make provisions for sick and older missionaries who will spend the rest of their life in Belgium. Now, on April the 26th, 1862, Mr. Jean-Charles Brabant, the owner of the old chapel of Our Lady of Grace. So that was an old chapel that was before a part of the Carthusian monastery. But the monastery was completely destroyed. Only the chapel was left. And this is a drawing made in 1823. It was, and this is the chapel, a picture of the chapel. Later there was already an annex built to it. It was a place of pilgrimage where Our Lady of Grace was venerated. So this is the image of the statue of Our Lady of Grace. The original is in the church in Anderlecht, Brussels. So this Mr. Brabant entrusted the chapel to the congregation of the missionaries. And it was situated in the place known as Scheut or Scheutveld. Scheut is a Dutch word, and it means really a terrain that is sloping. That is the meaning of the word Scheut or Scheutveld. Now they had a chapel, but they had still to find a house in the vicinity of the chapel. And a certain Miss Marie-Françoise Maas leased them a spacious house. This house still exists. It's about maybe 500 meters away from the house of Scheut, the house of Scheut in Anderlecht, where the provincial government or the provincial of BNL of the Belgian Netherlands province is housed. And this house still exist on the Chaussée de Ninove. Now this Miss Maas leased them this house under construction for a 9-year term, free of charge. But the contract stipulated that the tenants had to finish the construction at their own expense. And so in this house was then later the first novitiate, and so also the first house of Schut. In the meantime, resources had been gathered for the upkeep of the priests who were preparing themselves for missionary work. And then on November the 28th, 1862, Cardinal Engelbert Sterckx established canonically the Congregation of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. That is one thing. Then secondly, on the same day, he also appointed Theophile Verbist Superior General. And thirdly, he approved the statutes. But it so happened that on that very day, Theophile Verbist was very sick, really very sick, because the confreres, the first companions, thought he's going to die. It was very close. And he recovered, but it took more than 3 months. I was not able to figure out what was the sickness, but he really, the confreres thought he's going to die. Then the following year, on April the 27th, the chapel was solemnly consecrated. During a general meeting of Catholics in Belgium held at Mechelen in August 1863, Verbist had the opportunity to address the 4,000 participants. After he had described the origin and development of the foundation of the Belgian mission in China, he made an appeal to the Catholics' prayer and charity. On November the 14th, 1863, the Sacred Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith granted the decree of praise to the new congregation, and so it passed from diocesan rite to pontifical rite. And very slowly, more and more priests and seminarians joined the new congregation. Now, Cardinal Barnabo gave the green light for the departure of 3 members. But then there was the problem of the passports, because the Belgian missionaries needed French passports to enter China. It took about 8 months to solve the issue. Probably there was some misunderstanding, but the real reason I was not able to figure out. Then on the 1st of September 1864, the Vicariate of Mongolia was given to the CICM congregation. 8 weeks later, on October the 24th, 1864, the day following the retreat, Verbist, Van Zegveld, Wrangs, Verlinden, and Bax took their first vows. And the formula they used was borrowed from the Jesuits. It was practically the same with some slight changes. But to the religious vows, they added the oath of mission, thus dedicating their life to the proclamation of the gospel among the infidels. And it was Cardinal Sterckx who presided over the Eucharistic celebration. In June 1865, Verbist went to Paris to settle the question of the passports. And it was on June the 21st that they got the passports. Then in a farewell letter dated July 24, 1865, the Belgian bishops, to the Belgian bishops, Verbist wrote that the congregation had 12 members, and 4 will leave for China. So these are the members of the first caravan: Theophile Verbist, Alois van Zegveld, Frans Wrangs, and Ferdinand Hamer. There was also a layman among them, namely Paul Splingard. later I will say a few words about this layman. Jacques Bax will be the director of novices, and Remy Verlinden will help him and take care of then the second group that will leave for China the following year. On August the 24th, the day before the departure, Verbiest could settle the acquisition of the chapel of Scheut and the land around it. So the owner, Mr. Brabant, donated the chapel to the congregation, but they had to pay for the land around it, about 1 hectare. Then on Friday, so these are then the ones who left for China, the founder, Alois van Zegveld, Frans Franks, Ferdinand Hamer, who later was martyred in 1900, who was Dutch, the others were Belgians, and Paul Splingaard. Paul Splingaard was a foundling, an orphan. He only finished elementary education, but Father Verbiest had observed that he was a very intelligent man, and he took him along to China. And there he rendered a lot of service to the congregation and later started his own business. And he became even a Mandarin in the Chinese administration. And to my great surprise, he became a brigadier general in the Chinese army. I think he is the only Belgian who became general in the Chinese army, according to the information I read. So they left on Friday, August the 25th. They traveled via Paris to Rome, and there they met Pope Pius IX in his summer residence in Castel Gandolfo. 10 days later, they embarked for Marseille in Civitavecchia, a small harbor near Rome. After a trip that lasted more than 100 days, they arrived safe and sound on December the 6th in Siwenze. So this was the church seen by Verbiest when he arrived in Siwenze on December the 6th, 1865. It was the central mission station of Inner Mongolia. And now I move to the third part in the life of Theophile Verbist, his life in China, from December the 6th, 1865 to February the 23rd in 1868. At the end of September 1866, all the Lazaris, that were the missionaries who were in Inner Mongolia before the Schutists arrived. So all of them had left the Vicariate of Inner Mongolia. There were 14, 3 French Lazarists and 11 Chinese. Then the following month, in October, the Vicariate had 4 Schutists and 6 diocesan priests. There were also some catechists and Chinese women who dedicated their life to the apostolate among women, instructed the girls, took care of about 400 orphans in 5 orphanages. And they also looked after old people. And the CICM missionaries stayed at the seminary of Siwenze, where also the seminarians stayed. Now the following year, on November the 27th, 1866, a second group of Schutists arrived in Inner Mongolia. Travel in Inner Mongolia at that time was not easy. It was either on horseback or in a cart, hot in summer and cold in winter. And that is then the winter costume of the founder. From the very beginning of the congregation, the founder stressed the need to be united in prayer and heart. But then unexpected events took place. On April the 5th, 1867, Alois van Zegveld died of exanthematic typhus at his residence of the Valley of the Inferior Pagode. The Chinese name I cannot pronounce. But then the next victim, it was the founder himself. He had decided to undertake a pastoral visit to all the mission stations of his vicariate before going back to Europe. He left Siwenze on February the 3rd, 1868, and 3 weeks later, on February the 23rd, a Sunday, he died of the same sickness of exanthematic typhus in Laohukau, the Tiger Valley in the district of Chehul. And a Chinese priest who was preaching a mission in a small village about 30 miles away from the place where Verbiest was dying, administered him the sacrament of the sick. Theophile Verbist was 44 years old when he died, and most probably he was buried there on February the 26th. And then in 1931, his coffin was placed in a monument in Schut. So before there was the chapel was extended and a rather big church was added to it, and in the side chapel was this grave of the founder, and the coffin was inside. Later it was placed in the crypt where it is still at the moment. So this is a picture of the beautiful Chinese coffin containing the mortal remains of the founder. And below the image of the founder, you see the prayer bench. So it was on this prayer bench that the founder conceived the idea to found a missionary congregation. And indeed, the mission in Inner Mongolia and China has flourished. And that is still the statue of Verbiest in the Tiger Valley. Now this is the newly built cathedral of Siwenze. And this year, on April the 6th, it was the Holy Thursday. It's a picture of the inside of part of the inside of the cathedral and the Holy Thursday celebration in Siwenze. So indeed the work started by Verbiest flourished. Now, to conclude my conference, I will say a few words about his missionary spirituality and vision. When Verbiest and his first companions started writing the statutes that should rule the members of the new congregation, they agreed unanimously to dedicate the congregation to the incarnation of our Lord Jesus Christ under the patronage of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The dedication to the Lord Jesus Christ, the incarnate Word, from whom redemption proceeds, must be understood as a readiness to work for the salvation of peoples. So Theophile Verbist founded the congregation as an instrument to convert the nations. The founder and his first companions, they realized they could not be present everywhere. And so they focused on one country, China. Moreover, they would look after the many orphans in the country. Consequently, if the members of the congregation want to remain faithful to the vision of their founder, they will have to go to in the first place to the peoples who are not yet Christian and maybe who will never become Christian. The founder also realized that missionary life entails sacrifice. On July the 15th, 1867, he wrote to Jacques Bax, the novice master, in Schut. The life of a missionary is a life of sacrifice. So you have to suffer. But apart from the pains inherent in the apostolic life, everything progresses. Another couple of years and the momentum will be given. My opinion is always that we have a good and beautiful mission, but you need a real vocation to work there. Otherwise, you will be very unhappy. Verbiest also stressed that the aim of the congregation is to send apostolic workers to the most ungrateful parts of the mission field of the Lord. In a letter of October the 20th, 1867, he wrote the following: I cannot lose sight of its purpose, that of supplying apostolic laborers to the most ungrateful parts of the Lord's field. However, I am really convinced that to achieve this goal, men of true vocation are needed, and I should not allow myself to have illusions and admit candidates without serious tests and a quasi-certainty of a missionary vocation. Then he also wrote about something that struck me, namely about the sanctification of the missionaries. A short translation of one sentence: the goal we have set ourselves in this world, to work successfully for the glory of God, for the salvation of souls, and for our own sanctification. Verbiest did not write so that is the text, the translation from his letter written on April the 22nd, 1866. Now, Verbiest did not write a book on prayer. He did not leave us a treatise on prayer, but he prayed. But at the same time, he was a man of action who had an ideal: the proclamation of the gospel in China in order to convert the pagans. His prayer is the expression of his faith and trust in God, who has called him to do mission. He invites the members to be united in prayer, to be one of heart, and in this way they will reach their goal. And so later this motto will be elaborated, and it became the emblem of, or the motto of the CICM congregation: Cor unum et anima una, one heart and one soul. And to conclude, notwithstanding many difficulties and upheavals, the work of the missionaries in close cooperation with the many lay people has produced many fruits. May the Lord of the harvest continue to inspire all of us, together with the Christians of Inner Mongolia and China, to continue the beautiful work of evangelization. Father Theophile Verbist, be our intercessor with our Divine Master. Amen. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Andre de Bleeker, for your detailed presentation of the life and mission of Father Theophile Verbist. While I was listening to the presentation, I was struck by this young congregation, quite fast how they move, year after year, very fast. They just went out to China, and I think it encompasses quite well the spirit of today's church with Pope Francis. The idea of a church going forth, that is not stuck in a place, but a church that goes out, and especially, as you said at the end, to the peripheries, to the places where many times is people that few will like to go those places. So I think that with this one spirit, one heart, we thank you very much for your presentation, and we hope that we can continue throughout the day deepening on our knowledge of Theophile Verbist and the CICM mission and in the church. Thank you very much.